Okay. Okay, I think I'm live. Just doing a quick check here. Okay, I think I'm live. Okay. Alrighty. Okay, I'm live officially. I think both on Instagrams and YouTube. It's now 8 o'clock. What's happening to the millions of fans and people out there listening and watching in quasi radio land? So I do this because I like it. I do this because it's something I've always wanted to do. Whether there's anybody out there doing it or not, or listening to it or not, doesn't matter. However, I've noticed that there have been at least a few views on YouTube after the fact of these, so that's cool. So hopefully those that know that this is happening. Actually, one thing I can do is let's see. Um, So what I'm doing here is I am quickly just doing a quick share to the Farce book. I didn't have this up in time, so pardon the thing here, but yeah, trying to create a post. Come on now. Come on, Wi-Fi. What the heck? What the heck's going on? It's just being a dick. Come on now. Dude, come on now. Don't you start. I've got stuff to do. Come on. So of course now my cat is being a pest too, because of course I need to try and do this, and it's just like, no, you need to pay attention to me. It's like, well, no, that's not happening right now. Anyway, and my stream is acting stupid. Okay, it's gonna be one of those nights, huh? Okay, fuck. Hang on one second. Pardon me while I try to fucking do this. Let me just send this up there, do that. Yeah, I'm trying to fucking share that because I'm live now, like right now. Share under the feed. Yeah, there. Okay. All right, so that's sent out. All right. God knows. And I think I'm I'm not sure because it's I know I'm live on Instagram. I can see that going. It's it's YouTube I'm not sure of tonight. It's being a dick. But everything else is saying it's going like it's supposed to, so I'm going to assume that that's the case. But the yeah, I don't know. I'm checking on the YouTube feed and it's just giving me Achita. So I don't know. I'm just gonna just keep going. I don't want to take up more time up here. Just there's already going to be an entire night of people kind of looking at me funny if they come in without understanding what I'm doing. So for those of you the millions of people out there listening and watching down in Radio Land, I'm getting tired. Fucking shit. Do I need to restart this? It's saying I'm live, so I don't really know what to do here. I'm gonna have to assume I'm live. I don't know. So anyway, I think what's happening is because I haven't paid my Verizon bill just yet that they're throttling my fucking feed, which I wouldn't be surprised because, fuck Verizon. And I know they're listening, so they can go fuck themselves. So, I'll get myself in trouble by, tempting the corporate fates or the corporate entities or whatever. I no longer care. Anyway, so I'll assume that I'm live, and if I'm not, I'm not. I don't care. Anyway, so what I'm doing, for those of you potentially listening in or coming in immediately or whatever, I am doing a Beatles Greatest Hits remix. Listen along. So what happens is that I will be listening to the remixed the new remixes from the I've already done the Red album. I did those the last 2 weekends. So part 1 and part 2 are up on YouTube, and basically you hopefully will have bought these in some form, whether that's CDs or downloads or whatever. And then what you do is when I hit play, you hit play at the same time, the same song, and I comment, and then I pause them, and then I make more comments, and then I start and stop, and I let you know what I'm doing, whatever it is, so you can kind of follow along, Unfortunately, the way copyright works and the way especially the YouTube algorithm, actually the YouTube and the Instagram algorithm, the way they both work, is like if it hears the music going out live, especially live, it gets grumpy. As a matter of fact, last week I was on both the Instagram and YouTube, and I was about maybe 3/4 of the way in, and suddenly Instagram shut me down, saying, "Oh, I'm playing music. Your video's being deleted." It's like, well, fuck you, So I restarted, and so I think what it was is that it was leaching out of my headphones ever so slightly, but just enough for the algorithm to hear. It's like, for fuck's sake. So it can't win. So I'm gonna try to find that sweet spot for everybody, for the millions of people out there listening currently, and hopefully I don't get shut down. So we'll see. Either way, probably the best way to listen or to follow along is potentially on YouTube. But those that are up on Instagram, well, you're here or not. Now that being said, it's also Saturday. It's the Saturday before Christmas, because it is Saturday, December 23rd. So, everybody might be in Christmas mode. Obviously I've got my little Christmas lights around my mic stand here, and I myself have been in somewhat Christmas mode because I've been, on vacation from work, which has been lovely. It's been, I've been kind of looking at these dry run vacation, long form vacations from work as a rehearsal for retirement, because I'm trying to put it out there that somehow something happens where I am able to retire sooner than later, because I'm kind of done, really, on some levels. I mean, I'm going to work till I have to, and I will do the best job as I can, depending on the situation and all that wonderful stuff. However, if given my druthers, if something were to happen in the beginning of the new year where it was very obvious that I could kind of pick and choose what I was going to do, then I think that's just, believe me, what I would do. Anyway, so, all that said, and it would give me more time to do this kind of stuff potentially, and maybe do a little more with it on different platforms, and maybe try to get the word out a little more and all that kind of stuff. And that's all I can do. I mean, right now I have to work around my work schedule, which is difficult. So, but anyway, so this year I purposefully pushed myself into being in a Christmassy mood. Last year was a rough year, a rough Christmas, rough holiday. It was one of those. I was already just like really, very on the verge of pretty much being depressed and just very sad, and the things that I look forward to, the little things like even like just the work parties that we were having that I couldn't go to because at the time myself and like two other people, we had gotten potentially exposed to someone who had COVID in the office, who also could not go. So we couldn't go to like these two. We have like the regular employee party, and then we have our department party, and it's just like, it's like they're work parties, but I enjoy them enough because it's just kind of hanging with the people that I work with, that I'm around more of my life than not, and just having to be able to, and not having to worry about work really, even though we probably tend to talk about work a little bit, but like this year, so this year none of that happened. Thankfully, everybody was, for the most part, was in good health and all that. And it was lovely, just good. It was really, good food, and just, having some fun and games, people being able to have a drink here or there, or whatever, raffles and blah, blah, blah. It's something. It's just something that's a little more, in the Christmas spirit. So anyway, so that, those things just make me happy, as minor as they are, but it doesn't take much to make me happy, So, but seeing Christmas lights out on the houses, and just making sure my tree is up in the other room, of course, and just trying to be a bit more in the festive spirit, just kind of watching Christmas themed shows and whatever, movies. Excuse me, and I'm just trying to kind of muddle through, through a situation of global strife that, I can't do much about. And worrying about it is certainly not going to help my situation much. I am more of service to folks if I'm in a better mood, because listen, I'm lucky enough, and I am grateful enough right now that I have a house, and I'm able to kind of pay for it, sort of. I mean, at the moment at least, God knows what can happen tomorrow. I don't really know, but for the moment, I'm okay. Everything's good, and I have food in my stomach. I got a roof over my head. I've got a pesky little black cat that bothers me every once in a while, but otherwise, is the best thing that's ever happened to me in a while. So, so after last year's kind of crap Christmas, this year I decided, no, screw that. I am going to purposefully sort of have at least some semblance of a holiday spirit. It doesn't come naturally as much, as one gets older, of course. And, again, okay, drinking game. That was me saying again, part one. So part of this is also a drinking game. I've noticed that as I have a verbal tick where if I'm trying to reiterate a point that I made earlier, I will say the words "and again" or "again." And I find it fucking annoying when I found this out, and now I'm hyper aware of it. So it's a drinking game. For those who are listening in, and hopefully you'll have a libation with you. I don't have a libation. I have caffeine. I will take a drink, and you should also take a drink as well. It's a drinking game. So anyway. What was I saying? So, Christmas spirit, all that kind of stuff does not come naturally as I get older. And so, one has to kind of immerse oneself in all of the things and hope it just kind of rubs off, and do what you can when you're out in the public, doing whatever. I was doing a little shopping today, and it was sort of tolerable, actually. So that's where we're at this year. This holiday season, weekend of Christmas, and or whatever holidays you all celebrate. Um, I have said many times that when I was a younger person, I had a big family, big family, big secondary family. Um, the aunts, the uncles, the grandparents, the cousins, um, and then side friends as well. And every Christmas Eve, and then Christmas Day, we would we'd do a big get together on Christmas Eve specifically. It would start at about 5 o'clock and go till at least 1 in the morning. I mean, it was a long party, and I'm once again lucky enough to have had those memories, or to have had those experiences amidst other aspects of my childhood we won't get into. I'm lucky enough that there was at least a little bit of balance where there were moments of great fun and familial, festivities and stuff like that. So, yes, I'm lucky in that regard. I hope potentially that other family members that I know are still that experience those things, that are still around and they're more my age or whatever, will remember those things as well. Obviously, the matriarchs and patriarchs of the family are long gone, long passed away, and the tradition of getting together on Christmas Eve kind of fell by the wayside once they passed, really. So, that's that's just going to happen. I mean, I think that was an inevitability. They had the tradition for, I mean, we're talking 50 years long before I was even born, of them, getting together, and it was this is an Italian family, so we used to also every Friday night and every Sunday afternoon go to my grandmother's house. Same thing. We would just gather Friday night, shoot the shit, have some treats and coffee, and watch some television or whatever, kibitz and blah, blah, blah. And it was another thing we all looked forward to. And then Sunday afternoon, same thing. We would go at about 11 o'clock, have brunch, pretty much, or lunch, read the papers in the afternoon, watch television, and that was just about every week of my life, of my young life, through up until at least 1980 82, or God knows, if not beyond that, I don't really know, but so, and then again, Christmas Eve. We also do 4th of July. Before I was born, they used to do New Year's as well, but that seemed to go a bit by the wayside. I don't remember us ever doing a New Year's Eve party that I remember. I just don't remember if that's the case, if I took part in one or not, but whatever. So, all that said, I'm hoping that people out there are having as good a holiday as they can possibly muster, and go from there. That's kind of all we can do, right? So on that note, I am, just as a postscript as well to what I'm doing tonight. Tomorrow is Christmas Eve, so I will be doing what I think this is my third one, I want to say. Be what is going to be basically an annual Christmas Eve stream, in lieu of going out somewhere, and I will play some music. I will chat. Excuse me. I will maybe play some stuff from YouTube and play some music that hopefully won't get me shut off. I'll still be live on Instagram, though. I'm trying to figure out a good way of posting the stream from my OBS to Instagram, and there is a way to do it, but I haven't successfully figured out a way to do it yet. So I'm working on that. So basically, that way the people that are up on Instagram can also listen and watch and kind of do exactly, or see exactly what I'm doing on YouTube. But anyway, so that's so tomorrow, Sunday, the Christmas Eve, around the same time, about 8 o'clock. I'll also be following NORAD and Santa, because that's something that I get a kick out of, even at this elder age of mine. I always say that if I ever had access to computers and things when I was a young kid, and something like NORAD, it just there's just something kind of cool about it, and that everybody kind of is, it's the one thing that we do around the world for the most part, that we are all kind of in the same moment somewhat. So it seems like that's the only time we do that, which is kind of sad on one level, but because I wish we would do it more. If we did it more, potentially we would be less likely to want to kill each other, but I don't know. I don't want to make this political. So anyway, so I will be doing a Christmas Eve a stream tomorrow starting at 8 o'clock and go as late as I possibly can. Usually I'll try to go to midnight if I can, so that'll be a good 4-hour show with stuff that I play. And again, see, what did I tell you? Verbal tick. It's crazy. I found out I did this while doing a filmed clip for another video I was doing, and I was going back to edit and realized it's like, wow, I say that an awful lot. And it's just, I'm trying to retrain myself to like just say it differently if I'm going to recall something I said before. It's just annoying. I find it very annoying to myself, and that's it probably doesn't annoy anybody else. Then again, there's millions and millions of people up here, and there's probably not enough people that have watched it that would either notice or give a fuck. So whatever. Anyway, I notice, I give a fuck. I am going to try to change. So all that said, I am going to start this process. So tonight, mentioning before, I've already been through the Red album the past 2 weekends. So that was part 1, did the first half, which was Love Me Do through up into the Help album remixes. Part 2 was then starting with the Day Tripper We Can Work It Out single through to the end of the record, which was Revolver era songs. So that gives you kind of a sense of like how I'm doing this. And tonight, what I'm going to do, obviously starting at the beginning with Strawberry Fields, starting with 67, basically that's the first thing that they released in 67 in February, was Strawberry Fields Forever and Penny Lane. And I'm going to go through to the Hey Jude single, though making sure that Hey Bulldog is in this mix, because that happened around the beginning of 68, even though it was only released in like later 69. So I'm going to put it kind of, mainly because it's also, there's 37 songs on this particular album. It'll kind of balance it out a little bit, though next week's show, which would be part 4, which would be the New Year's weekend, that's going to be so tonight we're going to go through mostly the psychedelic period. So the first single is Sgt. Pepper, Magical Mystery Tour, all the singles from the year of 67 through into the beginning of 68, with Lady Madonna, with Hey Bulldog, and then Hey Jude and Revolution, which technically those are the start of the White Album. Those are the White Album sessions, but it trying to balance the days so that this isn't a 4-hour program. So that's what we're going to do tonight. So let's start it out. So if you are ready and you have your version of the remix, however that is, whether that's on your own device, your own downloads, your own CDs, your own albums for that matter, all the millions of you out there who want to follow along, same thing here on Instagram. So you're not going to hear the song. You will hear me either during the song make some comments, and then I'll pause the song, make more comments, and then start the next song, and on and on and on. So you will follow me starting and stopping. And what's great too if you didn't want to do this live, you can come back later to YouTube, because those are going to be captured up there and left up there for people to use. And apparently the past couple there have been some folks that have gone up and done that, so that's kind of cool. So I'm going to leave this here. So if people want to pop in live, that's great. If not, well, you can come and check it out later. But I'm going to start. I'm hoping Instagram does not get shut down. I'm going to make sure my headphones are not horribly loud, so that way it doesn't get shut down. Anyway, so we're going to start. Beatles, 67, 1970, Blue album, the 2023 edition, starting with Strawberry Fields Forever. And now this is the 2015 mix, which is the mix that was part of the Sgt. Pepper remix album. And pretty much the first 7 songs of this are from those sessions. So first being the single for Strawberry Fields and Penny Lane. So here we go. Strawberry Fields Forever. This was so exquisitely recorded that I think it would be difficult to make a bad mix of it. That edit, knowing where that edit now is always such a cool moment. Sword mandel going across the head. Nice. So that song is still, no matter what you do, I think no matter how you mix it, that's the song itself is just gonna be what it is. What still is striking though is you know recorded just beautifully for the time, like the best that the Beatles ever sounded up to that point. The two different versions that were used that were famously spliced together at least at exactly 1 minute in. And what actually is the most striking is the fact that what makes the song amazing is there's actually not a lot of audio trickery here. I mean, the audio trickery that they did was really just speeding up and slowing down two different takes to create, that edit, which was miraculous in and of itself, is the fact that the two are in two different keys and different tempos, and by slowing down one and speeding up one, or whatever they did to basically make the two tempos work, and then somehow they ended up being in the same key as well. I mean, that's kind of miraculous, because that wasn't how that was an accident, Otherwise, it was just an arrangement. So it was very. This part was purposeful. The arrangement of the first part, the first minute of the original take of it, is just drums, bass, the mellotron, of course, guitar, and a little shaker. And that's it. And John's vocal, and that's it. Really simple still, still really basic, and but it's just that the textures that they're using are very 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 purposeful. Then from 1 minute on for the rest, which brings in the cello and horn arrangements that George Martin so deftly put together, and then also overlaying the percussion track that the Beatles and whatever other hangers-on were in the studio for that particular session for the thing, which apparently George Martin was not a part of that, and that was actually produced by the Beatles themselves, that one session. So that's overlaid. That part of it from 1 minute in, the only studio trickery, apart from you can hear that the track was slowed down because Lennon's voice is affected. The only thing that they did different that was trickery really was just the use of the backwards percussion. So during the verses, and then the ending, the use of the sword mandal, which is just a sort of a zither like thing. So the audio trickery it's not as overdone as people think. It's just that they were very particular about what textures they were putting down, and what textures were going to be working against what other textures. Cellos, brass, sword mandal, the mellotron, the bass and the drum, the percussion tracks, and then the errant guitars, and then the little attack piano at the very end there. I just it's just one of those pieces that for a while I was pretty obsessed with this song long ago. There was something mystical about this song that I was really trying to crack. There was a code to it or something. And but that's maybe the trick, is that there's really no code to crack. It just kind of is what it is. However miraculous it kind of is, the way that they worked out that final edit. So anyway, so that's Strawberry Fields Forever, and good remix again. See, I'm gonna do this forever on a day. Thankfully, this isn't like liquor. Otherwise, I'd be in big trouble. So what was I saying? Anyway, yeah. So, I would say that mix was pretty much par for the course. Not really horribly different from earlier mixes in general. So yeah, that was but much clearer. Obviously, they were able to pull things out and clear things up as they have been doing. So anyway, Penny Lane is up next, and here we go. Also, the remix from the Pepper remix album. And actually, this is probably the definitive version at this point. In beautiful stereo. Such economy in the drums. So, yeah, so that mix of Penny Lane is definitive. Long story, and oddly enough and amazingly enough, that Penny Lane was only ever in mono from the start of '67 through into only the early '70s. Where they finally did do an actual stereo mix, not a fold down mix that that the Capitol Records did for the Magical Mystery Tour album, which was just a kind of a cod stereo. There was never a true stereo version of Penny Lane until much later, and then finally that kind of saw the light of day in a couple of different arenas. But this is definitive. It pulling it apart. The way they did. Now it says that it's the 2017 mix. What that means is that they remixed it from the generational tapes. These mixes were not. Same thing with the Strawberry Fields mix. These mixes were not generated via the AI engine that much of the first album, the Greatest Hits remixes were done. These were done by generational tapes. So with Penny Lane, the base of the track was built from mostly keyboards. So multiple keyboards just kind of doing the rhythm, doing the whole thing. Drums didn't go on until much later. Same with bass. There really isn't any guitar on there. And it's all, woodwinds and strings and things and other odd sound effects that are percussive effects that are really interesting to find out what they actually are when you're listening to them. And then the vocals, of course. This is one of those pieces that's so beautifully produced, but it might as well be a classical piece because it's so lush and so full and so sort of I mean, it's that '60s kind of four on the floor psychedelic thing that the Beatles used for a lot of the Sgt. Pepper pieces, and others copied. Um, all that said, this was not one of those ones done by the AI generation. So, as I was saying, they started with a keyboard track, so they would do 4 tracks. Then they would bounce those to another set of tapes. So, like, say, take track 1 or 2, or 1 and 2 maybe, add some other stuff, and then they would keep kind of doing that and making multiple bounces and things. So eventually, what ended up would be a 4 track tape with multiple things on each track that, until recently, were that's how they were cooked. That's how they were baked. So if they didn't have the generational tapes that they used, they could have maybe done it the AI route, but they didn't have to, because they had the generational tapes in the archives. They were able to digitize everything, sync everything up digitally in a first generation form. So what you're hearing is these instruments for the first time in a first generation form, put all together. Whereas, for the last 50 years or whatever, we've only ever heard them in a multi-generational kind of form. So as good as that still sounded and the way it was, and because they needed to record these things in a really, really high-end way, now you're actually hearing the fruits of that labor. So the Penny Lane mix, this Penny Lane stereo mix, is definitive. Now, what I would have loved on the Sgt. Pepper album would, if they had done a version like this, but adding that little trumpet thing that's at the very, very end on some of the mixes. So there was an original promo mono mix, which is on the record, but only as a promo mono mix. So, minor quibbles. It's like, that's certainly nothing to quibble about. All right, so now we're going to be getting into the Sgt. Pepper album proper. And these are all from 2017 mixes. And we will start with Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, going into With a Little Help from My Friends, and then Lucy in the Sky, which are really the first 3 songs from the record. But here we go. So this is Sgt. Pepper. Here we go. Also, these were not also the same. These were not AI generated. These were multi-generationally generated from tapes. Ringo's drums, man. So big and full. And then straight into With a Little Help from My Friends. Ringo's heavy on the chorus, but then really light on the verse. The sound on the drums in these remixes is just revelatory. And then Ringo starts to up the compositional aspect with adding some cymbal on this verse, still keeping it light. And then suddenly he's doing a full-on rim shot in the chorus. It's so heavy. So there's a completely separate video that I did up on YouTube that is all about the Sgt. Pepper remix. I go into full on detail of the new remixes as opposed, in contrast to the original stereo and mono mixes from the '60s. Where I say basically what I'm going to say now, in that the new remix of the Sgt. Pepper album is definitive for me, because it's just same thing. These are taken from those mixes from 2017, which were not AI generated or demixed. These are working from generational tapes. So you're hearing what was originally on, the first tape before they bounce, second tape before they bounce, etc., etc. So you're hearing all of the instruments in beautiful fidelity with a lot of air around it. So there's space in between things. What's most revelatory is Ringo's drums. This is where I started to kind of, in my mind, to really reassess what Ringo brought to the table here. Because what he brought to the table was potentially so subtle that I think people might have tended to miss it. And this is another one of those songs that, and when first listening to the remix, realized that, so during the verses, he's kind of doing a light touch, and even in the first verse, you barely hear him hit the, make any noise on the kick drum. It's just snare and hi-hat. And then the chorus comes in, and suddenly he's heavy on the kick, and suddenly he's heavy on the snare, doing a full-on rim shot, and just grooving all the way. And then back into the verse, he kind of recedes back a little bit, and it's just kind of very gently doing the snare, and it's just so striking. I don't mean that ironically or as a pun. Ringo's drums are striking, not just in the way that they were recorded, but his work on what he's doing with these songs. He's doing more of it. He's a percussionist. He's not just a drummer, and I think that needs to be really well parsed going forward. And as I've gone through these remixes from the last two sessions I've done through now, I'm just reiterating it, that Ringo comes out the best on a lot of levels with these remixes. He is the one who comes more to the fore on some levels. You know, everybody kind of knew what Lennon, McCartney, and Harrison had to offer just in bringing the compositions as they were. And instrumentally, pretty much everything you needed to hear between pianos, guitars, and basses, we kind of knew. It was Ringo's drums that tended to suffer the most, I think, from those early mixes, because they would be the first, maybe potentially the first things to be recorded, and then they kind of get overlaid and dubbed down and generationally squashed and blah, blah, blah. So the clarity of those drums kind of got a little muddied with all that. So now all that mud is gone and you can hear them in beautiful relief. So, all right, next up is Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. And this is another one that I won't go into it now, but I'll bring it up after we listen to it. So here we go. Hi-hat and kick drum during the verses. That's it. So Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. Another one, once again, not AI generated. This is another one from Generational Tapes. Pretty much the same as the others, the last couple, where just being able to hear the instruments in really beautiful relief from each other, nice clarity, transparency between everything. The mix is just really, really well done. The original, the keyboard, the initial keyboard intro arpeggio is kind of stereoized a little bit, which is kind of cool from, the this side to like the middle, which is interesting. Um, the kick drum comes in at the very start, which in previous mixes was either not there or was very low in the mix. And you can hear Ringo kind of slowly building and building and building. But during those verses, it's just kick drum kicking the sort of the pulse, and then the hi-hat comes in to just do a little bit of accenting, and that's it. That's all it is. I can't say it enough. What Ringo is doing on these songs is just gorgeous and beautiful and simple and subtle and classy and all the things, all the accolades I can give it. I can't really say more than that. Another. This one is a little more electronically sort of enhanced, but not via tape. You have a guitar through a Leslie. You have kind of Baldwin or Lowry organ sounds that sound more like a celeste or a harpsichord. Reverbs, delays on the vocal, kind of a doom-laden piano, and then also not a sitar, but I want to say it's not Dilruba, but it's the drone instrument, the other drone instrument there that Harrison is playing. And then on the choruses, there's definitely more guitar going on, and then also that general sort of Vox organs, that kind of sound. So when hearing them in these remixes, once again, I'm going to say it. It's interesting to just hear the economy of everything. But I think that's part of the magic. It really is part of the magic at that point. All right, next up is Within You Without You, which was original. I don't believe was a part of this original Greatest Hits package. It was one that they redid or they just added to. This is also one of the 2017 mixes, so I'm assuming it's the same one that's currently on the remix album, which this was the only one that I had a niggle with, really. It's a fairly minor niggle, but it's a niggle. Actually, one other niggle I had with Lucy in the Sky. One of the things that Giles Martin did with this the remix of Sgt. Pepper, in cleaning up what he did to remix everything, he kind of maybe cleaned up a little too much. I'm understanding the reason why, because Sgt. Pepper is such a piece of art in and of itself. It's sort of like you're wanting to kind of clean up the intermittent sounds in between things that may have been left there during the recording process and stuff. It's one of those things, though. It comes down to like the way that I used to listen to the Sky, the stereo version of that. You hear Lennon kind of make some kind of weird little vocalizations in between toward the end at one point, and it's something I'm aware that it's not there now, when it's been there in all of the other mixes, both mono and stereo. Minor niggle, it's something I would probably still pick this mix over the initial one. Same thing with Within You Without You. There's an instrumental difference during the middle section of the sitar solo that is significantly different enough to be, at least in my mind, fairly noticeable. Niggle, bit of a niggle, no big deal. I know the reason why it's there is because they basically added, or they basically found another track of sitar on one of the generational tapes that was somehow left out or whatever it was, so they put it back in. Anyway, you're going to hear that now. So we're going to play Within You and Without You. Right, here we go. You can really hear Harrison's voice really beautifully centered in the middle of this mix. And generally, as I've said before, that the recording of the orchestra on this piece and all of the Eastern instruments is just really beautiful. This is where I was talking about. It's a different solo. Yeah, and that's just so Within You Without You. Yeah, different solo sitar mix. So that's the sitar itself. Just in my mind, sounds kind of really squashed and really small, whereas in the original mix, not so much. It sounds bigger. It also, I believe, is doubled in the original mix. So also another instance of cleaning up in between things after the solo section, where there's just the percussion reintroducing into the verse section. in the original mix, you could hear George Harrison actually counting out, like with his, just kind of, with his mouth, just kind of like dum da dum, kind of verbalizing. That's another thing that I'm used to hearing, and now that I'm not hearing it, it's sort of I miss it, and I'm this mix would probably not be my definitive mix. It's really the only one. Your voice has slowed down. Okay, I don't know what that means there, Andy. Okay. There was a weird. I'm curious now. Your voice has. Okay, no, it's all set on YouTube. So that Andy, you might want to check that that's on your end. I don't know because everything seems all set on this end. Make sure you're not listening to me at a funny speed somehow. Because everything is going out as it should be. You might want to like log out, log back in potentially, because I don't know how that would be happening. Try that first and see what happens. That's the only thing I can think. But that's weird. That's a weird one, especially on the Instagram. I could potentially see it on YouTube, but all of my settings are correct, and I checked my monitoring of the feed, so YouTube is going okay. So Instagram, I'm not so sure. There you go. Well, and here's the thing: Instagram was acting weird last week too. So I don't know. Maybe they're. Oh, is it bad? Is it better now? Okay. Something must have happened where when you logged in, it something must have happened. I don't know. Okay, cool. That's good to hear. So last week, so my friend Andy is up here on Instagram. Last week, Instagram shut me down in the middle of it, saying that I was playing music that I shouldn't have been, and they deleted the video. I think because my headphones were too loud. It was just leaching enough out of my headphones into the Instagram, into the microphone, into the phone. So I've had to bring that down. So far, so good, I think. All right, so that's cool. Anyway, but that's weird. But that's just another anomaly. I was mentioning earlier that I haven't paid my Verizon bill yet. So I think what they do when that happens is that they throttle my my bits per second. I pay for a certain amount, but then if I don't pay them literally on the minute that it's due, it's like they throttle. I think that's just the thing that they do. Anyway, so there's that. So anyway, I'm glad that's all set. So as I was mentioning, so Within You Without You, I would say go to YouTube, go to my go to the clip that has. Actually, I wonder if I could just show you the clip that I have of it. Let me see if I go to here. You won't see this on Instagram, but those up here will be able to see my channel, and they'll be able to see the analysis. I'm not going to play it, but anyway, yeah, you can kind of see that I have. I'll just transition that over, so you can see that I basically did a Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band 2017 remix analysis, where I go through all of the new remixes, doing an A/B comparison of the original stereo mixes and mono mixes as remastered from the most recent later 2009, 8, whatever they were. And eventually I will get to the other ones. It's a big undertaking, obviously. But that's up there. You can kind of get more in depth. I get more in depth with Sgt. Pepper specifically. And, it's potentially maybe a more entertaining view than me live, just literally staring into a camera while I'm listening to what seemingly is nothing on the other end. Anyway, so there's that. onward then from Sergeant Pepper. Oh no, I'm sorry. We got one more from Sergeant Pepper. We have A Day in the Life. So once again, no, not from Strawberry Fields. Day in the Life is the last one from this remix, so we'll play that. Once again, if you want to hear me wax eloquent about all things Sergeant Pepper, please do go to the YouTube channel and look for that. Look for that clip. So for now, we will play A Day in the Life. So here we go, hitting play. Oh, interesting. They actually started this mix straight guitar instead of the fade in. Huh. So you really get a clean version of this, actually. Interesting. The remix is so interesting just to hear how they constructed this. Still spare, not a lot of going on really. Until there's a lot going on, of course. The orchestra kind of perfectly synced at this point. So now this is the long fade out, of course, which I'll talk over. Once again, this was not an AI generated remix. This was a multi-generational tape remix. And you're able to once again hear all of the elements in real wonderful relief. It might have been interesting though if they had done some AI on this, especially with Ringo's drums, because he is still sort of technically in mono, kind of over here or whatever. Whoops. Pause that. So anyway, go to the YouTube clip of the Sgt. Pepper. I go again. I'm gonna, because I said the word again. Drinking game. I wax eloquent about it. What's interesting though, on this greatest hits version, obviously on Sgt. Pepper, the Sgt. Pepper reprise fades out, and then there's a crossfade into A Day in the Life, so you don't actually have a clear, clean start. Whereas here, you hear there's a nice clean start. So this is, what's cool about that. So this remix, though it's the same remix that's on that record, it's before they. Voice is slow again. I don't know, man. I don't know what's going on. Something must be up with your stream. That's the only thing I can think, is that if the stream is somehow not strong on your end, it's just creating a lag, which doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, that's the only thing I can think. I mean, I don't know, because if it's especially when you come back and then it's fine. So, anyways, Instagram issues, internet issues. With A Day in the Life, you're getting a nice clean beginning here, and so that's cool. So it's cool to have at that point. You want to definitely buy the Blue album, because you get that nice clean beginning of A Day in the Life. Once saying that, to reiterate, I'm not going to say that word. These are not AI generated. These are multi-generational tape generated. So one thing that's interesting is that now they were able to resync in glorious stereo the 4 different takes of the orchestra happening at the build-ups. Now they're like perfectly synced, whereas back in the 60s they had to use 2 different tape machines using a primitive sync pulse to try to sync the 2 machines together with kind of varying results. The final stereo mixes and mono mixes that you hear from that era, from the 60s era, are both very different as far as the syncing goes. They're a little off. They're not perfect. Might be a minor niggle, but it's the kind of thing where it's sort of like maybe they're now in this remix maybe a little too perfect, which kind of negates the chaos a little bit that was kind of happening in those original mixes. So minor niggles again. Dang it. So hard to say that one. It's another situation of where I'm just so used to hearing it a certain way, and then suddenly it's very different. I would still be willing to want to listen to this new remix as my definitive, because of just how beautiful it sounds, really. Okay, so going next to transitioning here is All You Need Is Love mix, which says it's remixed from 2015, and that I want to say is. No, that can't be right. I was going to say that it was from it's not the Yellow Submarine song track remix. It's a different remix. This would also be a multi-tape generational remix, not an AI remix. But I'm trying to think where this mix would have been originally, because I'm not sure. I don't have a recollection, because Magical Mystery Tour, unless they actually did a remix for the Magical Mystery Tour album. I don't know, actually. I would have to do some research on that one, because there's a number of mixes here from 2015. And I'm actually want to do some research on this, and I can bring that to you next week, because there's a number of on this album. There's a number of mixes from 2015. Ballad of John and Yoko, Get Back. Let's see. Hey Jude, Lady Madonna, Hello Goodbye, All You Need Is Love, and then also Strawberry Fields Forever at the start of this. I'm not sure what those are from, or what those would have been remixed for at that time. Interesting. So I've got a little bit of work to do in regards to researching that, because I'm not sure. All that said, we will move on to what would have been the first thing that was released after the Sgt. Pepper album in June. I mean, the Sgt. Pepper album was released June 1st, I want to say, ish. And then literally not 4 weeks later, they were live doing the All You Need Is Love, Our World broadcast. So they were kind of, cooking on all burners at that point. So, all right, next up is All You Need Is Love, which is the 2015. And once again, this would be another non-AI remix. Okay, here we go. Well, still a lovely, inspiring song, especially in this day and age. You know, that was probably the probably the peak of the potential of the human species was that moment. I won't get political. It's a political song. I mean, it is. I mean, whether you'd like to think it is or not, but it is. I think that, you know, not really much to say about that. You know, the mix of it, the mix is, you know, as mentioned before with these other mixes going generationally from the tapes that they were going from, able to really pull out all the various instruments, and then really getting a sense of the live aspect, which was the final voices, the bass, a guitar, the guitar solo specifically, some drums, the orchestrations. Pretty much all of that stuff, for the most part, was live during that broadcast and just captured, one take. So, I mean, they rehearsed it and they had some semblance of a backing track to start with. But so pretty amazing. It came out as good as it did. That could have been a real disaster. And apparently, the story goes is that George Martin was having a little drinky before they went live in the truck, because so they're in Abbey Road Studio 1, which is where they have do all the orchestra stuff, and all the cameras are in there, and at one point before the broadcast, like not long before the broadcast, the truck outside lost the connection, and so there was like some real tension going on there. So George Martin was having a little tipple, and suddenly he's like pointed at, saying, "All right, you're going live. Okay, you're going live. We have the thing." He had to shove the bottle down underneath the mixing desk so that it didn't look, bad that he's drinking on camera. If you go to YouTube, you can see the full broadcast in all its glory, and it's just kind of an interesting thing to see. But that mix is pretty standard, nothing really special about it, but still a lovely thing to listen to. All right, now next up are the Magical Mystery Tour bits and pieces. Now, one of these, Hello Goodbye, is from 2015. Not sure what that's from. Got to find that out. There are brand new mixes of I'm the Walrus, Fool in the Hill, Magical Mystery Tour. Magical Mystery Tour, the album has not been remixed or done. There's no, as far as we know, there's no box set pending. There could be potentially. I don't know. I mean, they've done most of the songs at this point. In stereo, they'd be able to put the new, Strawberry Fields Forever, Penny Lane, All You Need Is Love, I'm the Walrus, Hello Goodbye. So there's really only a handful of songs to make a fully remixed, U.S. version from Capitol, but with nice new stereo mixes, etc. And then there's plenty of outtakes from the film that they could add to as extras. So that'd be cool. However, so I'm the Walrus has been remixed before. It was remixed as part of the Love Project, and that remix is actually pretty amazing. I have listened to this current remix of I Am the Walrus, and it's interesting is what I'm going to say about it, because there's some things on it that I feel like might be a little too different. Things in the mix that they kind of brought out or forward that is maybe just a little too different. So, but you have to hopefully listening to it as we go. I could tell you right now that I think that so far the best remix of I Am the Walrus is from the Love album. So you might want to find that first. That said, the original stereo mixes of I Am the Walrus and the stereo and mono mixes of I Am the Walrus are their own beasts, of course. The original mono mix of this was at the time the definitive mix, and the way that they mixed it with the radio signals, the technical limitations of bringing in a radio signal onto a different channel while they were basically mixing to mono. that didn't have its own channel. So what they had to do with the stereo mix at the time is they had to do like half of it was regular stereo, and then they did like a reconstituted faux stereo mix for like the second half of it, which created its own kind of weird psychedelic mindfuck, if that makes sense. More out of necessity than something that they planned, but it's one of those things you listen to a thing a certain way and you then don't hear that, and it becomes like, oh, that's interesting. However, the Love version of I Am the Walrus is the one to find, because they were able to not, again, damn it, they went generationally, multi-generationally taped, but long story, they were able to find the radio transmission from that night of especially the play that they found in the BBC. So they found the original tape of that and brought it in as its own channel kind of perfectly. And they do the same thing on this one, but it's just a little bit different. But anyway, here's I Am the Walrus, remix 2023. But it does sound beautiful. Ugh, that drum break is just devastating. Always will be. It's also two drum kits going. I have to do that. They do still cut out that little blip in the middle. I was kind of hoping that they'd have left it in. See, they were able to lift AI, that radio signal thing. Now it's got its own track. And they did slightly replicate what the original stereo mix was doing by moving things in a different way. So that's interesting. So what they did here with this mix, at the end mostly, pretty good up to, and they replicated somewhat how the original stereo mix went, where everything kind of zoomed into one ear and created a bit of a fake stereo. They kind of replicated that a little bit, which I was very happy about. Though the orchestra seemed a little bit less, or a little bit more behind, like the band was a little more kind of above the orchestra, which in the original mix, I mean, the orchestra were really kind of more up front on some levels. So mixing choice, it might be just one of those things where it's a different mix. I'm mixing it differently. There you go. At the end, once the radio comes in, suddenly the radio gains the dominance, which is, I think, a misstep. This is where it gets odd, and I'm wondering, with the AI generated, pulling the channel out, it might have revealed some things that weren't originally very audible in the original mix. It's the only thing I can think is that they just decided, oh, this is new. We haven't heard this before. Let's pull it up as far in the mix. So the ending of this with the radio kind of in front of everything. And I've heard rumblings about this online with other people hearing this, is that it kind of leaves with a bit of, with a bit kind of a bad taste in the mouth. So, yeah, they almost had it, and then they dropped the ball at the end. There you go. That's what these not all of these remixes are perfectly tuned or correct or palatable or whatever you want to call it. So I would say if you're going to look for a remix, go for the one on the Love album for I'm the Walrus. Next up, though, is Hello Goodbye, also from 2015. So this would probably not be an AI generated mix, but a multi-generational tape remix. You know what I'm realizing? It just dawned on me a couple of things. That the 2015 remix is potentially, at least for a couple of these things, like for Hello Goodbye, that would coincide with the re-release of the film on Blu-ray, where they did do a new surround mix. By the way, which is I normally listen to that or watch that on Boxing Day, which is the day after Christmas. So on the 26th is Boxing Day, which is when it originally aired in black and white, of all things, in England in 1967. So kind of leaving that year off on not the best note in the world. But anyway, so I'm wondering if that's maybe where these mixes somehow originate from for some reason. But then again, some of these other songs like the Get Back era are also from 2015. So I don't know if that's real. Anyway, so next up is Hello Goodbye. From 2015, it says. So here we go. Hitting play. Also, a lovely sounding mix. One can get the sense that the Hello Goodbye I'm the Walrus single was a bit of like we need another Strawberry Fields Penny Lane type of single. Um, both of those pieces could be basically sequels of each of them. So Hello Goodbye being a sequel to Penny Lane, it's very similar. I'm the Walrus, a sequel to Strawberry Fields, somewhat similar, just in some of the sound textures but just I'm the Walrus is going further than Strawberry Fields, whereas Hello Goodbye kind of marking time a little bit, not as good as Penny Lane, production wise, more, I mean, it's the Beatles. I mean, it's not like a Beatles like home run per se, but for anybody else, it's a Hello Goodbye would have been their entire career. So you do the math of that. But nothing special really about that one. 2015 mix, non-AI generated. One would make me think it would have been maybe interesting if they had been able to, even though they went multi-generational with those tapes, to be able to pull some of the elements are still seemingly kind of married to others on the tapes in the mix and in the stereo field. It still sounds, miles better than the original mixes. But so if I'm going to pick new mixes or original mixes, I would still probably pick this mix. Next up would be Fool in the Hill, and then after that, Magical Mystery Tour. Both of these are brand new. These are AI generated mixes. So we're going to go to Fool in the Hill first. Here we go. Yeah, see, the mix of this is really beautiful. really hear beautiful relief between the instruments. You can actually hear a tack piano along with the regular piano on that side that I never heard before. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful remix of that. Just the recording is stellar. Simple tune. Interesting that as I was listening to this, I realized that an old song that I wrote ages ago on an old album that I put out ages ago um, is a somewhat of a ripoff of Fool in the Hill, and I never noticed it before. Basically, yeah, I'm pretty good at sort of unconscious pastiche, apparently. So, oh well, what are you gonna do? I've been aware of it for a while. That's why I've stopped writing. I just in general end up finding out that I stole it from somewhere. All that said, yeah, you can just really hear all the lovely bits and pieces of everything really separated nicely in their own sphere with their own air. So this one, definite success, which is another reason why well, let's listen to the actual Magical Mystery Tour theme next, because that's coming up, and then I'll make my final discussion about Magical Mystery Tour. Here we go. Two tracks, two separate performances of drums, which you don't really hear, nor in the old mixes. And you hear this electric guitar like doing this like 50s riff. Never heard that before. That's amazing. So yeah, that's a lovely mix, remix of Magical Mystery Tour. Definitely bringing out things you never heard before. You know, the horns sound a little different. It's hard to say if that was a treatment or just from the AI being able to pull them out a little bit and really hearing them. But what you're really hearing is the band is like this chugging rock and roll guitar. So this mix rocks, you know, harder than the original mixes for sure. So all that said about Magical Mystery Tour album, if they were to release a remix box set of Magical Mystery Tour with all the goodies and extras from the film that were never released, like Shirley's Wild Accordion, original versions of Blue Jay Way, all the other various bits and pieces that they did as interstitial music that is in the film but not on the record. Would I buy that? Yeah, yes, I would. I would definitely buy that. So I'm just saying. So that's the Magical Mystery Tour era. There's only a few more left. So next up, though, I'm going to go a little forward here. In the song order on the hits album, they have it kind of coming in after the White Album mixes, but before the Get Back recordings, which is because of when it was released. However, Hey Bulldog was part of the same sessions that begat Lady Madonna, Across the Universe, and The Inner Light. So those should be in at least the same proximity. So I'll actually play Lady Madonna first, and then we'll go to Hey Bulldog. So this would be now 1968 officially. We're coming out of 67. They're coming out of their phase of not wanting to be Beatles per se, and now they're kind of coming out of the psychedelic phase of things somewhat. And Lady Madonna, 2015 mix, not sure what it's from, what that would have been mixed for from 2015. So, because that's already 8 years ago now. So hard to say. Anyway, so here's Lady Madonna, hitting play. Also not AI generated. Piano, snare in one ear here. Then bass, drums, vocal. Really hearing Paul's bass playing is just like up to the game. Yeah, but though not AI generated, but multi-generationally tape generated, a really nice mix of it. Still being able to really kind of hear a separation between things really, really nicely for the most part. Though the initial piano and brushes are still kind of, sounds to me like they're still married to one track over here in one ear. But then it kind of spreads out from there, so that's okay. 2015 mix, don't know what it's from, what it was meant for at that point, just don't know. All right, now we scooch to generally same sessions, but now AI mix. This is Hey Bulldog. This would be a new mix, and there is a mix of this from the Yellow Submarine song track, which up until now might have been deemed the definitive mix, because those mixes in general, though not done by Giles Martin, also not AI generated, but multi-generationally generated, are actually very, very good mixes of a lot of things that initially at the time had not been remixed, like a lot of things from Sgt. Pepper and Magical Mystery Tour albums that ended up in the movie of Yellow Submarine, along with then Hey Bulldog, and then all the rest, All Together Now, etc., etc. So Yellow Submarine can said to have been remixed for that album, because those are all remixes. So will we get a Yellow Submarine album remix box set? Probably not, though I would still like to see one, even though you can get it on the old version of the, not the most current version of the Blu-ray / DVD of Yellow Submarine, of the surround sound mixes of the orchestral score. The first iteration that came from the Yellow Submarine song track has the same artwork and everything. That DVD Blu-ray, you can go into the soundtrack of it and localize the orchestra only for the whole movie. And that in and of itself, like I did a rip of it and made my own sort of playlist of that with all of the other regular songs, because George Martin's score for that, I think, is just it's just absolute genius. I think it's like one of those underrated. I mean, Martin is so underrated anyway, but I think, like that he was never, and I'm pretty sure he wasn't, that he was not nominated for best score for that is a sin. I mean, it's just an absolute sin. So, but I digress. We're coming out of that era somewhat, but we are in the Yellow Submarine era, because they were certainly working on it throughout 67 and into early 68 before it was released in July of 68. So around that time. So we're going to listen now to the new AI generated version of Hey Bulldog. Here we go. Yeah, nice. Very clean. That's definitely Harrison doing the solo there. Totally. Yeah, see, they replicated this from the original mix. Yeah. Yeah. That, so I forgot the transition. Oh well, on the YouTube. So that version of Hey Bulldog is definitive. What Giles did, which wasn't done on the Yellow Submarine song track, as good as it sounds, one of the things they did not do was at the end when there's you hear McCartney and Lennon kind of going back and forth, kind of just talking. In the original mix, they bring down the band in the background so you can hear that talking a little bit, like you hear the volume go down. He did that here, and then he brings it up again, and it really lifts it the same way that the original mix does. So kudos for catching that and doing it, and thank you for doing that. I think Hey Bulldog, to my estimation, was really the Beatles' last hurrah as a band, if that makes any sense, as far as the four of them really working together to create something that all four of them have. You can really hear the piano, or Lennon's piano, which is really rudimentary, especially in the bass. He's just kind of going ding, 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 ding. You don't really hear that in the original mix of it, which is great. So that AI generated mix is really beautiful. Because at that point, they would have been moving through from, they go to Rishikesh, aborted meditative sessions with the Maharishi. They kind of come back. Lennon gets with Yoko. They start the White Album sessions, and things are fractured officially, I think. And I sense other things happen, and this is getting into the politics of the band. It has nothing to do with remixes, but I think other things happened beyond. There are things that I think happened that we're still never privy to. I think specifically between Lennon and McCartney. McCartney, same thing. He came back from Rishikesh, broke up with Jane Asher. Lennon came back from Rishikesh, broke up with his wife Cynthia, and the only ones that stayed. So a lot of fracture going on during this time, and I think the fracture within the band was very, very obvious. So the last two things I'm going to play tonight are going to be Hey Jude, which is once. This is also from 2015. Don't know what it's for exactly. So don't know what it's for. This would have been the first single after the Lady Madonna single from the early '68. Lady Madonna in Her Light. Hey Jude came in, I want to say July of '68, while they were still working on the White Album sessions. And I think you can really hear the difference here. Hey Jude famously, Paul McCartney kind of telling George Harrison not to play on it. I think that was the beginning of that particular set of fractures happening in real time, or at least in hindsight, as we know the history now. But here is Hey Jude in all of its 7 minute 11 second glory. Here we go. Hey Jude. but very simple. Slowest fade ever. So as this fades out, um, I will say that potentially my least favorite of the Beatles singles. I'll say it honestly. Um, I think for the reasons that I've mentioned earlier, just kind of getting us a real sense of fracture. Always been a bit annoyed by, potentially I'm not the only one, considering Lennon and Harrison what they've had to say about it in the past. McCartney sounds over earnest, especially in the na 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 section of the over vocalizations of things. Just like feels too much. Feels too like, you know, like it feels out of context somehow. Um, so as a remix, yeah, probably the best sounding mix of this that I've ever heard. When they originally recorded this at not Abbey Road, they originally recorded parts of this at they recorded parts of this at Olympic Studios. It sounded odd. It sounded very dull. This was also the first. Well, actually, not the first. Hey Bulldog was actually the first time. I think that Ringo was starting to use the tea towels over his drums, just to slightly dampen things up. But then just going forward, that was now the new sound for Ringo. It was like kind of thumpy, which I didn't like as much. I preferred that really open-ended snare sound from earlier on, from especially the Rubber Soul Revolver, Pepper, eras. So not my favorite song of the Beatles, honestly, which ironically is, it's their most popular single or their most successful single. So that was their peak. The B-side of that was the fast version of Revolution. This is an AI-generated mix. It was already a spare piece of work, and this will be the last song for the night as well. And then next week we'll pick up in the White Album proper, White Album, Get Back, Abbey Road proper eras. But so Revolution is an AI-generated mix. Hey Jude was not an AI-generated mix. That was a multi-generational tape mix. For what reason in 2015, I do not know. We do not know. I don't know. I'm going to have to do some research. I'll bring it back to you next week. So last but not least, to round the night off, since it's about it's 10:16. Once we're done with this, I will log off for the night, and then we go from there. So here is Revolution, the fast version, the single version, 2023 mix. I mean, it's a great mix of it, for sure. It was always an odd sounding record. The two guitars are over here because they sound so similar. Willing to bet that AI could not split them apart really well. Whereas the drums, bass, vocals can be pulled out. Such a shame that Nicky Hopkins didn't become like a fifth Beatle, or Billy Preston for that matter, like on a permanent basis. All right. All right. All right. That's going to do it for the night. So that is the AI generated version of the fast version, single version of Revolution. Um, and that record always sounded squashed and weird, and it sounds very clean now. I mean, clean and it's already a dirty sounding record, or especially was the way it was rendered and recorded. Purposefully overloading the mixing board by plugging the guitars, all of them completely directly into the mixing board to really, and just overloading it, and that's the fuzz you're hearing. So there's that. B-side of Hey Jude, once again, not necessarily my favorite of their singles, but that's a minor quibble. It's certainly just a personal opinion. These mixes are, even if not perfect, they're wonderful refreshers of the older things. The older stuff still exists. So if those are what you want to listen to, or what your what your favorites are, and there are definitely still favorites of the original mixes that I will always probably go back to. I listen to these, and I'm interested in these much more as an engineer, just to really hear how things were recorded and what they captured with what they had at the time, which was, some semblance of like the microphones that they had were better than were not as good as what we have today. But then there are some that, because of the vintage quality of the nature of the tube, there's just the warmth that they captured, it's difficult to capture that these days in the same way. So all that said, that's the end of part 3. That's the end of my night tonight. It's about 10:20 something. Next week on the on the 30th, which will be the day before New Year's Eve next week, I will do the final part of the series, part 4, which will start with the White Album, starting with Back in the USSR. All of the White Album pieces, which are not a lot. There's only 6 songs. That has to tell you something, I think. I don't know, but there's only 6 songs from a double album on the greatest hits thing. So, as much as I love the White Album, and I probably have more White Albums than I do of any of their other Beatles albums, it goes towards what I was saying before about just the fractured nature of the Beatles sound at this point. It was a different thing. It was very, just a different sound. It was still the Beatles for the most part, but it was different. So starting with Back in the USSR, and all of these mixes were rendered in 2018 for the 50th anniversary remix album of the White Album. I have notes about these that eventually I was going to put into another separate YouTube clip, like I did with the Sgt. Pepper thing, where I go back and I listen to the AB mixes of everything. I haven't done it yet, because that's a double album. Obviously, it's going to take me a while to figure that out and film it and do it and all that. So I can give you like a little preview of my of what I'm looking at with these remixes. So we'll start with the White Album, then we go into what would have been the beginning of 1969, which is the Get Back, and I'm gonna kind of bounce around a little bit here because of the way that the greatest hits. This is all the way that they were released. So I'm gonna start with the Get Back, which would be a 2015 release, and then go into Let It Be, Across the Universe, I Mean Mine, Long and Winding Road. So because those are Let It Be, and then that way we dovetail then back into Abbey Road with the 2019 remixes for that album. And then we go from there. So we'll see. But that's it for me for tonight. I'm tired. I need to go get some more to drink. Maybe have a little bit of a nosh or something. You're gonna pay some attention to my cat because he's pissing. He's all bummed out that I'm not paying attention to him. So on that note, for all the millions of people out there, thanks for joining me, or hopefully, if not joining me now live, but joining me down on YouTube. And joining me down on YouTube. I don't know what that means exactly. I have been live, I think. So, though it's interesting, I'm not sure what live 359 means exactly. I haven't been live for 3 hours and 59 minutes, so I don't know exactly what that means. It says to me that maybe the YouTube streamer's just stupid. I don't know exactly. It says that my stream settings were all correct. Don't know what that means exactly. See, now it's saying I'm not connected. What's happening? But I am connected, you asshole. So I don't know. It's saying that I'm live. I don't understand why it's saying this. Anyway, I'm gonna stop streaming, and we'll see what happens because it's clearly streaming up here. It's certainly saying that I'm live, but the YouTube my YouTube dashboard is saying that there's no that I'm not connected. That doesn't make sense, dude. So like, what if I were to do that? I'm leaving anyway. I'm just curious as to what happens here. Does it stop? Does it yeah, I know I'm live. Yeah, it says it's an excellent connection. So what's your problem? Bizarre. Yeah, see that? Okay, yeah, so something glitched with the dashboard at that point because, it doesn't make sense. Because, yeah, that makes sense. I was live 2 hours, 26 minutes. I'm live there. It says that I had a good stream health. Everything was excellent as it should be. So I don't know. Weird, very weird, very weird. Technology is just, I think, between YouTube and OBS doing updates and things, just, not working well. Anyway, I'm going to leave you. Please have a good night. Thanks, Instagram, for not shutting down on me. But we're going to end the night off, and I'll see you actually tomorrow. I'm going to be streaming for New Year's Eve. Hopefully I'll see the millions and millions of people that were here tonight will come tomorrow and watch me tomorrow, and I'll probably play some live music and amongst other things, and we'll go from there. Take care.